Wonderful. Doors closed. I'll take that as our cue to kick things off. Firstly, thank you so much for attending today. A wonderful turnout, and really appreciate your support of the local game development scene. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people present today. I'm Chris Button, editor of GadgetGuy and freelance games journo. Yesterday, for those who were here at Sage, there was a really lovely panel about the rich history of the South Australian game development scene and some of the greatest games that have come from this great state. One of my favourites being Hollow Knight. If you didn't see that panel, I would recommend looking it up online because this year's panels are viewable online, and I would recommend seeing that. The reason I mention that is it was a great look at the history of South Australia's game development scene, whereas now we get to have a very exciting look at the present and the future of the South Australian game development scene with this great cast of developers who are currently working on projects, some of who have shipped projects as well. It's going to be a pretty relaxed sort of discussion, having a chat about what each of the people here have been working on, what they're currently working on, and how they came to find themselves working in game development, which is a very varied and diverse career. There's certainly not any one individual skill set that's required to succeed in game development, as we'll hear from each of these developers over the next 45 minutes. So I'll start by going down the line and asking each individual to introduce themselves and what they're currently working on. So Katie, starting with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie Abela. So I'm currently working on a horror game. It's a 2D mystery horror game where you play as a photographic journalist and she gets thrown into investigating some disappearances in this town, but things slowly start to go wrong and she's got to try and fight her way out and survive.
And Johnny, what are you currently working on? A game that some of these people may have played on the show floor today already.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I'm currently working on a couple of projects, but predominantly highlighting a project called Plumbo, which you may have seen a little pink, disgusting guy like inflating and deflating his head. That is my monstrosity of a game. I hope you all get to try it.
Excellent. Onnie, what are you working on? I know you wear many hats. What hats are you currently wearing?
So I always wanted to blend physical experience and also digital experience together. So I, with Women in Creative Technologies, my organization, we build a digital playground where you can encounter with different immersive technologies, but at the same time, you're in a physical space that having certain props and stuff that you can play around. And so we're jumping into our recent project, right? Or yeah. Okay, because the biggest recent project that we're working on, it's going to be a festival. It's a National Women in Games Festival. So we really want to connect all the interstate women together, provide a platform for them to showcase their work. And again, as I said, my work is always about blending physical and also digital experience together. So besides just happening in a physical space with 3 states, we're also going to have a virtual platform. Then you can have your own pixel avatar, walk around and interacting with the other participants as well. That's the project that we're working on right now. And we're actually launching our Women in Creative Technologies Discord server today. So if you're interested in joining us, you can talk to Bethna. She's our project manager of Women in Creative Technologies. Yeah.
Euan, please introduce yourself and what you're currently working on.
Yeah, my name's Euan. I'm the director at Byte Studios. We're a small indie games company here based in Adelaide, and we're working on our inaugural first title called Blood Reaver. It's a dark fantasy, round-based first-person shooter, pays massive homage to old-school COD zombies. If you've ever played anything like that, you'll absolutely love it, but we've taken things in a bit of a different direction through blood magic and demons, you could say.
And Johnson, what are you currently working on?
Hi, my name is Johnson. I work at Big Ant as a junior environment artist. I am currently working on rugby and tiebreak, our tennis game, and I'm making stadiums and props.
Excellent. And as probably one of the only constants in game development is that there's no one linear path to becoming a game developer. So I'd like to ask each of you, how did you come to start working in game dev? Katie, I'll start with you.
Once I finished high school, I did about a year at uni studying visual art. Generally, like about halfway through the year, realised it's not for me. It was relearning a lot of things that I'd been doing for a very long time because I've been drawing since I could probably pick up a pencil, really. And then a friend of mine there recommended AIE, which is the Academy of Interactive Entertainment. I went to an open day there, got to see some of the artists there working on some art for some of the games they were working on, and was like, I love games, I love art, this is what I want to do. So studied there, and then from there got into game dev pretty much.
Fantastic. What about you, Johnny? How'd you get your start in game dev?
I remember, I think I was in the second grade, and I looked, and these are computers, they look so different to what they look like now. Now we have spaceships sitting on our tables. But back then they were just like little black boxes. And I remember seeing like a CRT, one of my teachers who wasn't actually, he was just a primary school teacher. He was like, this is Game Maker. You can make games in this. And I just immediately saw his game. And look, it was a really, really bad Pac-Man clone. I can say that. I'll go ahead and say that. I don't like to bring down art ever, but that was a really bad clone. And I could see through it, and I could see the potential of what I could do. But that would be my first ever look into video game development. And ever since then, I've been hooked.
Great. Onnie, how did you get your start in game dev and a lot of this blend of art and technology?
So I actually came from a theatre background. I studied directing. And then after I graduated from UK, I met these three wonderful men. They want to start a company doing escape rooms. And they are having like business and engineering background. None of them know creative stuff. They were like, Onnie, do you want to come and become a creative director of the company? I was like, why not? And then that's why it all started like in a physical space. But the funniest thing is why they want to build escape room is because they were playing tons of escape room apps games. So they were actually playing these mobile games thinking that transformed them into a physical experience. So I was there supporting them and then making all these escape rooms. And eventually, because technologies is much more fascinating, so we started to put in holograms, AR and VR. And the more I encounter with the design team, the designer comes to me and said that, oh, Onnie, there's limitations of VR and things like that. And I was like, well, now it becomes not just a barrier, but it stopped my creativity. I need to understand VR myself, so that's why I just completed my master in immersive media technologies at University of Adelaide. And I found out that there's so much more possibility in VR. VR is fascinating. What is so different from other media or video games, I felt like it's because you really embody yourself in the situation, in the environment. And I'm a person who always believed that the brain could lie. We can always trick ourselves in certain message and say that, oh, this is just an illusion and blah, blah, blah. But the heart can't lie. Like the instant feeling. The
heart can't lie.
Yeah, the instant feeling that you have in a VR world, it actually transforms and changes your physical behavior. And because changing by that, it instantly twists that mood, feelings, and thoughts immediately.
Preach, Onnie.
So that's why as a creator, when we started to create VR games, we actually can go beyond words and also beyond words to communicate with our players. That's why I found that it's very limitless. There's so many things that we could do with VR. So now I'm just loving it. However, just like the movie Ready Player One, you can't escape and you can't ignore the real world. That's why I blended the real physical world and also digital world together.
And Euan, how did you get your start in game dev?
So my start was kind of a bit, you wouldn't call it a straight line necessarily. It was a bit all over the place. I think from when I was a kid, I was always a traditional artist, you could say, and like growing up, moving around a lot, going through high school, always painting. I had a really deep love for that, but kind of realized pretty quickly that that probably wasn't going to make me any money. So when I left high school, I was like, I love video games. I'm going to go learn to be a concept artist. And I actually went to CDW. I don't know if you did, Johnson. So I studied at Flinders for a couple of years. And during that time, I realized concept art is really hard. And I wasn't that good at it. And then during that process, I actually took an elective of game design. It was a summer course through Shane Bevan, one of the Flinders CDW lecturers. And my mind was almost set after that. That just sparked my passion for games. The first thing I ever came up with, and I'm sure plenty of people maybe in this room have too, but it was a 200-player, massively multiplayer online behemoth of a game that would have cost $250 million to make. I never made that game. But I did find a love for game dev, and that actually led me then to go to AIE a couple of years later and study through the design course there. While we were there, of course, made lots of games. I learned how to program, how to use game engines and whatnot. But at the end of it, we had a major production with all of the friends that I'd made along the way. And we started Blood Reaver originally then. And yeah, it's something that's sort of cascaded on since then. And after we graduated in 2023, we formed the studio, we saw a gap in the market, and now we've been making games for 2 years.
Wonderful. And Johnson, I know you also haven't had a linear path straight into game development. You had a bit of experience elsewhere. Tell us a bit about your game dev journey and what led to where you are now.
That's great. So much like Euan, it wasn't a straight path. I started in high school just being extremely creative, more into making art than the sciences and the maths. So I decided to go into uni for industrial design. I finished that degree. I did industrial design for a little bit. Then I thought this wasn't really for me. The job market wasn't really there at the time. So after a few years, like COVID hit, I had some spare time on my hands because of that. I went to TAFE for a year, did the screen and media course for video game art, and found out that I really enjoyed making 3D models in Maya. That led me to do even further research into like where I could go, where this would lead. I then found CDW, which was at the time like one of the top schools for concept art and all that sort of thing. So I decided just to apply there, see how that goes. So because of the TAFE, I could take half a year off and start mid-year. So I skipped a lot of like the introductory stuff where you had to like practice 2D, 3D animation and all that sort of. And I just went directly into the 3D art. Since then, I finished the course and I pretty much hit the road running. I got employment at Big Ant, and here I am now.
And for those who may not know, in game development, obviously there's lots of different type of artists and types of art that goes into a game. And Johnson, I know your specialty at Big Ant is environment art. Could you please tell us, especially for those who may not be familiar, what environment art consists of, what it actually means, and what's the process of putting it into a game?
Yep, so for Big Ant especially, we're making sports games. So a lot of my environment art will be looking at stadiums that we have the licenses for, gathering that ref and trying to recreate it as close as possible with as efficiently as possible. So a lot of that would be going through the process of like people who have been to like university for CDW and that sort of thing would be very similar. Gathering the reference, making a block out, refining it, polishing it, and getting the textures ready for it.
And Euan, talking about sort of your craft specifically, we were talking earlier about Blood Reaver in terms of level design, and I know you come from a level design background. One thing I always love asking for people who work specifically in level design is, what do you think actually makes for a good level overall? And a second parter, also in the context of, say, the maps that are in Blood Reaver, how you've tried to apply that to your game.
Sure, I think that's actually a really good question because level design across lots of different genres of games can be entirely different. So it's probably really difficult to say like what makes a good level design. like what makes a good level, should I say. I think in the context of Blood Reaver for us, it's about identifying certain player philosophies and styles of maps that people want to play that reinforce the gameplay elements. And I guess that's more general for level design as well, where you want a player to go from A to B. You want them to start here and end up over there. How do you block things and put blockers in front of the player so that they still get to their destination, yet find an interesting way around? And then have enemies in there as well, demons for us. And then hide what we like to call weenies. It's a game dev term, where it's like something that grabs your eye, that's attention grabbing to lead you on to the next cool thing.
I've never heard that terminology. No, I love it. I'm going to use it.
Maybe I coined that then. But yeah, for Blood Reaver, like we spend a lot of time in pre-production for environment design to make sure that we're constructing modular sets and then levels from grey box to final art stages at lots of different points, and we go back and forth. Obviously, you know, we're a new studio; things don't always go right. We've probably spent about 8 months on a map now, but we're slowly moving on to the next one and finishing the first. Yeah.
Great. And for you, Onnie, I know you've touched on the why behind the blending of technologies like the real world, AR, VR as well. I'd love to know what led you to, I suppose, start exploring the intersection of technology and art, and whether there was perhaps an experience that stood out to you using some of those technologies that inspired you to start making your own experiences?
Yeah, because I think eventually, again, like I mentioned the movie, right? Ready Player One, especially at the end of that. Oh, I don't know if everyone already watched that movie. Maybe I shouldn't expose too much because I want to talk about the ending. But anyways, I guess we can't avoid and escape real life. We did mention all the time, like, you know, video game is like escapism. Like we can, you know, escape the real world for a while, but we do have to live in this world. So the game or anything that I do put my heart in is eventually I want people to learn something, to transform themselves through this experience, and they can be a better person in the real life as well. So for example, when I mentioned VR, actually there's some more things I wanted to say that, you know, when you become a first person, no matter it's in VR game or other games as well, you are making decision, right? It actually reveals who you really are and how you do things in real life as well. So if we focus on that and let the players to understand more about themselves, then again, they can refresh and become a better person to make greater like decision in the real lives. So I guess this is very important for me. That's why I want to blend like, you know, digital and physical elements into games. And even though sometimes we just focus on virtual, I'm looking at Johnny because we're actually developing a games as well together. Even though it's going to be totally virtual experience, we still want eventually after the game, there's the kind of like a little mission that we want players to do in their real life as well. So then it will eventually connect and go back to what happened in real life.
Yeah, and you sort of allude to as well that collaborating with Johnny on a project as well. Would either of you like to talk about what you're working on at the moment together?
Sure. We are working on a video game that poses questions to people in virtual reality space. And there's an avatar, which is basically made up of a bunch of like beautiful fireflies. And then they form different things. And you go through a set of questions, discovering things about yourself. And it's all to do with mindfulness, grounding, and meditation, and also self-affirmation.
I think us as game devs need to do a little bit more of that occasionally. Meditation specifically.
There's another question I want to ask about some of your recent work, Johnny, especially with Plumbo and Uncle as well. These very, very bright, very vibrant, colourful games.
Thank you.
I'd love to know sort of where the inspirations came from to I suppose inform, you know, these very, I suppose, very vibrant, very family-friendly sort of games.
Well, thank you, Chris. Well, my first game that I shipped was actually a psychological horror game, funnily enough. And one thing I realised very quickly was I couldn't show my little nephews and nieces, you know, brutal horror and or like those types of more, true crime related thriller content. That's just not suitable for young children. So I figured, actually, I want to make a game that I can show them and I can be proud to actually show them. And so I thought to myself, so what would I make for them? And then I thought, I always say like keep it simple, stupid. That's like for me. It's like I'm saying that to myself just to be like, don't need to reinvent the wheel, and in this case, I don't have to reinvent a ball, So that was Uncle Unco, basically, for those of you who don't know, is basically a hairy ball with 2 arms, and that's it. And he has to roll through a course, and it's very physics driven. And that was what got me into making these kind of happy, whimsy games. A necessity to do it for my little nephew and niece.
Yeah, as wonderful a reason as any. Katie, we were talking a little bit before about how difficult it is to ship games, especially working as part of an indie studio as a small team. You've shipped a couple of games, including porting a game in-house to another platform. Can you tell us a bit about the journey of, I suppose, working through shipping a game and some of the challenges of then also trying to bring that to an entirely new platform?
Yeah, for sure. So it's not easy. You can definitely say that. You got to work really hard. Like I think our first game took us about a year, which is crazy to think. But that was a year of literally no breaks and sitting at Game Plus, which is our co-working space. We work in just hammering out art and design. And I think originally the game started definitely a lot different than what it ended up being. We had a massive scope planned out for the game of like different characters we wanted to have in, which got cut. And then we had a few ups and downs with some teammates leaving and things like that for personal reasons. And then so I took on some extra work that I probably didn't have to do towards the end. Yeah, exactly.
I'm kidding. We love doing it.
I ended up at one point, so we had, with our first game, we were using this one animation system. And unfortunately, it was just making our game so slow. So I had to go and redo all our animations in Unity instead, because Unity had a plugin that we could do our own animations instead of that. So, but like once you get it out there, like it, and have learnt from it, like I guess the hardest parts are like being able to like work out Steam's back end and how Steam want you to upload your game to it, trying to get like all the storefront stuff sorted out, like doing research into how other games have basically marketed their game, trying to create like all the images you need for your store page and stuff. That's generally the hardest part. And then Switch is a whole other story of there's just so much stuff. Like Switch has such a small hard drive, so trying to fit your game onto that can be really difficult. We ran into a few challenges, but we managed to find a system called asset packs. So you basically pack together all your assets and break them down almost into like a zip file type thing for Switch. And that can definitely help run your game. We also, with our second game, Lucy's Potager, we had grass that was animated, which we don't have in the Switch version, as Switch didn't want to work very well with Unity on that. But I would encourage people to maybe research into how to port, just have a bit of an understanding, but would definitely recommend paying someone to port your own game. It's a lot of work, and we will definitely be doing that in the future.
Well, for something far more stressful for you, far less stressful rather, Katie, your art and your interest in art, I'd love to hear where did your passion for art come from, and where are some of the inspirations, where do you take some of the inspirations from? Yeah,
for sure. So, God, I can't even remember what influenced me to start drawing. I guess parents were very encouraging on that. My granddad used to do some art a little bit. But yeah, I've just always kind of found it such a great outlet for creativity, and even just it's relaxing, definitely. I guess some of my inspirations early on was Jamie Hewitt, who was the artist for the Gorillaz albums. He was a big influence on me in early high school. And nowadays it's like things like David Lynch's work and Sam Lake from Remedy. Our first game, the art style was influenced by Night in the Woods. Taking that really simple but like really cute but also kind of dark style. I guess they're my main influences in my art.
Great. Johnny, I want to ask specifically about Uncle Unco from last year, which was the winner of the Sage Elevate Award last year. I'd love to know what impact winning that award and getting that recognition has meant to you and what it's helped you going forward.
Oh my God, Chris. It's helped me so much. Not just sort of assimilating myself with the game dev crowd, but also being seen as someone who should be given opportunities. It's really hard to position yourself like that, and when you've been doing something for so long in isolation, you don't know how people are going to take it. But when you submit it, and I was so grateful and lucky that I did win. Since then, I've been to Melbourne, I've been to Sydney. I've had the offer to go back to Melbourne in March, it's just the floodgates opened and I was like, hold on to your hat, Johnny. And that's why I'm here right now, speaking to you lovely folk. So thank you.
Excellent. Onnie, I'd love to hear about your advocacy work and your work uplifting women. I think many of us probably agree now more than ever it's very important to provide platforms for women and marginalised communities. So I'd love to hear what you're currently doing with your projects and your current platforms. How you're helping the people around you and how people may be able to help and support going forward as well.
Yeah, thank you for this question, Chris. Especially I felt like I didn't do a good job when answering the earlier question, like why I want to blend like digital and also physical experience together and want people to action. I think I want to share a bit of story of myself that, I'm a woman advocate, but turn out it's a guy who have transformed and changed my life, who is actually my dad, of course. But my dad passed away when I was 10 years old. So he was quite young as well. He was only around 40. So that's actually give me a sign that whatever I wanted to do, I have to do it now because I don't know how long I'm going to live for. This is like the one biggest motivation for me is death. Because of death, I have to action now because now or never.
Very Nietzsche-like.
And then the second person, of course, is a woman. Besides my mom, she's an amazing woman. There's this woman I want everyone to learn about her. Her name is Ada Lovelace. She's actually the first programmer. And the most interesting thing about her is kind of like what I'm doing, combine two elements together and transform and create this most innovative things called programming language. So she actually fascinating and love literature a lot because her father is a poet, but mother and father divorced. So mom is like, never in your life ever touch literature and art. But, we all love our dad eventually. So she kept that part in her and she focused on studying mathematics and eventually she combined these two things together and created this programming language where we can use to communicate with the computer. Eventually now, we're making not just games and art as well. So I guess, this woman really inspiring me and notice that there's so much possibility a woman could do. That's why I also see the potential in so many women. This is going to be one of the first and biggest national Women in Games festival in Australia. As I said, we're going to have it in 3 states, physical space, to showcase women's work. When I say showcase, that's mean everyone, men could come, non-binary people could come. Everyone, basically, please come and support and see women's work. So we will have like of course, game showcase. We will have artist alley as well, and we will also have a pitch competition. You know, just like what Johnny mentioned, award could really help you. So we hope that we can provide a platform for women to, again, not just showcasing their talent, but just to let the world to see like how women could shine. And also, we are now planning to have some series of workshops to lead to the final festival as well, because we understand. As I said, many women are so talented, but we always self-doubt ourselves, Katie, right? We always self-doubt ourselves. Katie is one of the most successful game developer in South Australia, actually, but she's super humble all the time.
Thank you.
Come on, you launched your game not just on one platform,
Super
but
talented.
Switch, multiple other console as well. So we wanted to also provide these workshop experience for women and led to eventually the mid-September National Women in Games Festival. But just like Chris mentioned, we definitely need more support. So if you're interested, again, come to me after this talk, or also you can go talk to Bethna, who is our project manager in Women in Creative Technologies. We already get so much support right now. I'm not sure if I could say it out loud in front of the camera, but yeah, come talk with me, and you can learn more about this National Women in Games Festival, not just happening in a physical space, simultaneously, it will happen on a virtual platform as well.
Excellent. Stay tuned. Euan, one thing I'd like to ask, and there's an interesting thing that perhaps people who aren't intimately familiar with game development might not recognise the difference between, say, bigger AAA studios and indie studios in terms of, and this was something we talked about a little bit earlier, in terms of, yes, you can specialise in level design, but you often have to be a bit of a generalist and do lots of different things. Can you talk to the challenges of having your specialty, such as level design, but having to also manage that with the realities of, you know, being part of a small team and needing to do multiple things?
Yeah, so I think that raises an excellent point of like what you should do, maybe what you're studying to be a game dev. And the best way to really describe it is you want to be what's called T-shaped, like a T.
I'm learning new stuff today.
Yeah.
What are they called? Like
T-shaped.
Weenies.
Weenies.
I was like, okay.
So being T-shaped is really important, and what that means is you've got a baseline understanding of everything along your specific discipline. For example, like I'm a designer, I can do a little bit of programming, I can do a little bit of this, that, and the other, but then I've got my arrow down, and that's my specialization, and that really makes you so much more hireable in big studios and also in small studios. For me, for example, if I'm looking to hire somebody as an artist, I'll be looking for a specific role, like a tech artist, for example, which we are actually doing an internship program this year. And if you're a tech artist, do apply and you're studying. Yeah. But being a tech artist is great. But if you can also model some things and you know a bit of shader code and you know how to throw assets into a game engine as well, that makes you so much more valuable to me as a team member. Because that means I can throw you onto different parts of the pipeline and you can't just do the one thing. Like me, myself, personally, like Chris has said, I do a lot of level design, but then I do biz dev for Byte Studios as part of my job. I also produce the game, but then I also dabble in the technical UI design, the 2D stuff, pretty much everything. As an indie developer, and you kind of have to be that way in the indie space, especially when it's your first game. But yeah, T-shapes, get good at a bunch of things, but then get really good at one thing is the best sort of advice I can give.
Yeah, and on a similar note in terms of various skill sets and interests as well, Johnson, I know outside of game dev as well, you've got an interest in hobbyist photography. There's, I think in the photo there, big DSLR camera. In terms of having those creative interests outside of games and also having previous professional experience in industrial design as well, do you find that there's, sort of transferable skills, or what sort of value is there in having sort of broad skills, heading into a game studio?
That's a good question. I very much just enjoy the process of getting something from the start to the finish. So very much like photography. Like I started as a film photographer in high school, taking that class. Like I very much enjoyed the process of just having to develop the film and then seeing the final outcome. It's very much similar to what we do now in environment art, where we gather the ref and do all that sort of stuff to get to the final point to see it in game. So I feel like that is some of the knowledge that transfers over. Just like knowing that what you start with is going to be good enough, that it's good enough to show everyone, that sort of thing.
Trust the process.
Trust the process, very much, yeah.
Or die.
No, let's not die, let's not die.
What happens in your studio?
It is called Hellbite.
That is true.
Being Sage and a showcase of South Australia's game development scene and the people who make up that community as well, there's one question I'd like to finish on for all of you, and it's a relatively simple one, but you can take it in any direction you so choose. And that question is, why do you choose to make games in South Australia, or why do you choose to make interactive art or anything under that banner? Johnson, I'll start with you over at the end. Why do you choose to work and make games in South Australia?
Well, I mean, why not? Adelaide is a great place to live. There's some amazing courses and lecturers already here. Flinders, CDW, AIE. Big Gan is like actively hiring aggressively. So we've got studios here that are looking for people. Like, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be in Adelaide, right?
Absolutely. And on that note, I did hear, as in Big Ant is hiring quite a bit in Adelaide. So if you're looking for work, perhaps, get in touch at some point. Euan, why do you choose to make games in South Australia?
I'll broaden that up a little bit. Why do I choose to make games in general? I wake up every day and I can't think of a single other thing I would rather be doing with any of my time than making video games. I get to come into work every day, make cool stuff. I get to make weird Lord of the Rings-esque cool buildings and put them into an FPS game. And I'm so privileged to be able to do that. And the fact that we're here in SA where there's so much support for game developers, especially emerging ones, it inspires us to keep going. Like last year, for example, we went to PAX, we went to South by, and without a certain level of state support, paying for a booth, for example, and through Ben Kirshner helping us get to South by as well, we wouldn't have been able to do those things. But SA has those opportunities for emerging devs. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to be here, especially moving from the UK. Like, I'm not originally from Australia. Like, being in SA is I've been to all the major cities. I wouldn't leave Adelaide for anything. I love it here.
And what about you, Onnie? Why work in South Australia?
Yeah, I just want to share a question I got earlier. Someone from Melbourne asked me we're talking about like Women in Games Festival, and on a sudden she asked, so we want to talk about the location. Have you ever been to Melbourne? I was like, of course. Like, usually we are the one who ask people, have you been to Adelaide? People just really don't know how amazing this space is. And the most important thing is the community, the game community. It's a very tight-knit community. We're very close with one each other. We're very supportive as well. When I say supportive, I used to be the community manager at Game Plus. I first-hand witnessed all this generosity, all this friendship happening in our community. Just like Johnny, he actually was shooting like interview video for the others. It's not just shooting. You have to edit all this video as well. And he did a great job. And eventually, once he put on like LinkedIn,
thank you,
it really helped the others to promote their work and let, this kind of video is much more effective than just words and stuff like that. So we are like really helping each other. And if I want to talk about women in creative technologies, we were originally a club at uni, actually, but we attract women very quickly. We start from only 90 followers. On a sudden, within half years, we become like over 700 followers on our page. We got so much members. We got support from the governments as well, and we started to know many women-led business organizations. So it's all just happened within a year. Imagine, can you do that in other states when most of the states are huge. Like in Queensland, in Perth, they're really big. But again, here it's a close community and everyone is super supportive and friendly. So if you want to join us, not just Women in Creative Technologies, but also the game community, you can also join Discord channel. And tonight, there's actually this Saga award night as well. So come and join us and talk with the other game developers.
Aren't you nominated, Onnie?
Yes, I'm nominated for the community award, and someone else also nominated as well.
I just wanted to say something quickly, like talking about what you said, Onnie, about how close-knit the game dev community is. I met Johnny at Sage last year. I thought he was the biggest goober I've ever met. He's such an eccentric person, and I was like, who is this guy? Where does he come from? And now, over a course of a year, Johnny has become probably one of my best friends in this community.
Yep.
Everything he does is just for the people.
Oh, dude, you got me, man. Oh,
You are pretty great, man.
you are. Yeah.
So what
He's
is,
an amazing
what
human.
is the award that you got nominated?
Oh, man.
Rising star.
What Euan said. I'm being nominated for the Rising Star Award, which I'm very grateful to be put forward. Like I said before, actually, like you said, where else would there be the potential to have these opportunities? Adelaide can be a great place to make games. My family's here, and my extended family is here, and, I wouldn't have it any other way, truly.
Wonderful. And to round things out, Katie, what about you? Why
Yeah.
make games in South Australia?
As everyone said, our community is so great here. Like, we are really tight knit. I a few years ago had the opportunity, thanks to Claudia Watson from DTI, to go to PAX and spend the week with 10 other teams from SA, and every Melbourne and Sydney team would come up to us and they're like, why are you guys all like not competing against each other and helping each other out? And we're like, that's Adelaide. Like,
That
we
is so
are
true. It's
so tight-knit.
We are not cutthroat
No.
like they are. We
No.
actually just want to support with open arms, and we want to engage with each other's work.
Exactly.
And not, I
Cut
love
each
you,
other.
Katie. I love your work,
love you
Katie.
too, man.
I love you guys.
And
Gosh.
yeah, like
Euan's got me
every
feeling
day I
all
get to come
warm.
and work with half these awesome people. I get to work with plenty of others that are showcasing today. Like, Adelaide's just amazing, and like we have that real great government support with, like I said, Claudia Watson from DTI, Ben Kirshner over at Adelaide Economic Development Agency. So he actually also helped me get a desk at Game Plus for about a year for free because he's running the GPS program. And then
Sorry to
Pat
interrupt
Webb
you.
too.
If anybody doesn't know about the GPS
Yes.
program,
check it
it's a sponsorship to get a desk in a co-working space, and you'll meet a lot of devs like us just floating around that you can potentially ask questions.
we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll be here.
And then also James now, who's working here at SAFC, who gave us this great opportunity, and Pat Webb, who used to also be in James's role.
Great shout
they're
out, Pat
all
Webb. Yeah.
amazing people who help us out. And like, if you want to get in the industry, they're the people to go to get help, and these are the people to talk to learn off of. So yeah.
Can I just add one last thing? There is also just such an untapped amount of talent for game dev here in SA. We've got so many opportunities from education, like AIE, CDW, Flinders, and Uni SA, all having courses around this stuff. There's an exploding amount of people that are so incredibly talented coming into this industry here. And yeah, another great reason to be in SA for it, because there's just so much going on.
And I think the recognition for the local scene is growing as well, because I did actually overhear that the registered tickets for today alone were more than last year's Sage on Friday, Saturday combined. So that's a big thank you and congratulations to everyone here for supporting the local scene. And I'd like to also flip that back as well to thank the developers for their time. So please, a big round of applause for their expertise. And thank you once again for your time. Please have a lovely rest of Sage. Wish list as many games as possible. Go and buy an indie game and feel free to have a chat with any one of these lovely devs. Thank you very much.